The rain was merciless that evening, pouring like heaven itself was crying. In a small grocery store at the corner of Elm Street, a fragile girl in a worn-out wheelchair sat trembling, her trembling hands clutching a small loaf of bread. The shopkeeper's angry voice cut through the air, accusing her of stealing. People gathered, whispering, judging, recording videos. She tried to speak, her lips quivering, but her voice was too soft, too broken to be heard. And then, just when the shopkeeper's words turned cruel, a tall man in a faded waiter's uniform stepped forward, his apron still soaked from the restaurant nearby. His name was Ethan Walker, a single father who knew what hunger and humiliation felt like. If you believe kindness still exists in this world, if you believe second chances can change lives, then please, take a moment to like this video, share it with your friends, and subscribe to the channel. Tell us in the comments where you're watching from, and let's spread stories that make the world softer again. Ethan didn't know why his feet moved on their own. Maybe it was the way the girl's eyes, pale and full of silent fear, reminded him of his daughter Lily, who was the same age. Or maybe it was the memory of nights when he, too, had to choose between paying bills and buying food. The shopkeeper yelled that he was calling the police, and people pulled out their phones, eager for drama. But Ethan's voice rose above them all, trembling yet fierce. He said she hadn't stolen anything, that maybe she was just hungry, that maybe someone should show mercy instead of cruelty. But no one listened, no one cared, until Ethan placed a wrinkled $10 bill on the counter, paying for the bread she hadn't even eaten yet. He turned toward her, his eyes gentle, and whispered, "You don't have to explain anything, sweetheart. You're safe now." The girl's name was Amelia Ross. She was only 16, paralyzed from the waist down after a car accident a year ago. She lived with her grandmother in a tiny apartment on the edge of town. Her father, once a powerful businessman, had disappeared from her life after the accident, unable to bear the guilt of being the one driving that night. Amelia never knew he spent sleepless nights watching over her from a distance, drowning in regret. Ethan wheeled her out of the store as the crowd dispersed. He didn't care what they said behind his back. He just couldn't leave her there, broken and alone. That night, he took her to the small restaurant where he worked, the one that barely paid enough to keep his daughter in school. He made her a warm bowl of soup and shared half of his dinner, telling her stories about Lily, who loved painting sunsets and believed her dad was a hero. Amelia smiled faintly for the first time in months, tears falling into her soup. She whispered thank you, and Ethan just smiled, saying it was nothing. But it wasn't nothing, it was everything. Days turned into weeks. Ethan would check on Amelia after his shifts, sometimes bringing her leftover food from the restaurant. He even fixed her wheelchair when it broke, spending hours at night tightening screws with his old toolkit. Lily adored her too. She'd bring her handmade drawings, saying they were for Amelia's room to make it brighter. The three of them became an unlikely family, bonded by pain but held together by compassion. Meanwhile, far across town, Edward Ross, Amelia's estranged father, was living in a mansion full of emptiness. His company, once thriving, felt meaningless without his daughter's laughter in the halls. Every month, he'd secretly send money to his mother's account to support Amelia, but she always returned it. She wanted him to face his daughter, not hide behind his wealth. And one day, fate decided to intervene. It happened at a charity event hosted at the same restaurant where Ethan worked. The hall was glowing with chandeliers and champagne glasses, filled with businessmen in suits and women in diamonds. Ethan was serving guests when he saw Amelia being wheeled in by her grandmother, invited by a local community group that helped families in need. His eyes lit up seeing her, but then they both froze when Edward Ross, her father, walked onto the stage to speak. Amelia's breath hitched. It had been over a year since she'd seen him. The memories of the accident flooded back, the screeching tires, the crash, the pain, the way he had vanished afterward. She looked away, but tears fell quietly down her cheeks. Ethan noticed, confused but protective as ever. He knelt beside her and asked if she was okay, unaware of who the man on stage really was. As the event went on, Amelia's wheelchair accidentally rolled near the buffet table, and a waiter, one of Ethan's co-workers, spilled a tray of drinks beside her. The manager snapped, yelling at Amelia as if she were the cause of it. Edward turned his head, watching from the stage, but before he could move, Ethan stepped forward again, just like the day in the grocery store. He raised his voice, trembling with frustration and righteousness, saying that no one should ever yell at a girl like that she'd already suffered enough. The whole room went silent. Edward stood frozen, realizing the man defending his daughter was just a poor waiter. He looked at Ethan, his worn uniform, his tired face, his raw kindness, and something broke inside him. He stepped down from the stage, walked toward Amelia, and knelt beside her. His voice cracked as he whispered her name. The crowd gasped as Amelia's eyes widened, tears streaming down. "Dad," she whispered, barely believing it. The room filled with emotion. Some wept quietly, others watched in awe. Edward apologized in front of everyone, his voice shaking as he said he'd been a coward, that he thought she'd never forgive him. Amelia's hands trembled as she reached for his. "I forgave you long ago," she said, her voice weak but full of love. The father and daughter hugged, and for a moment, time stood still. Ethan stood behind them, silent, unaware that his act of kindness had just reunited a broken family. Later, Edward approached Ethan, his eyes glistening. He offered him money, a better job, even a home, but Ethan refused. He said he didn't help her for reward, he did it because it was the right thing to do. But Edward insisted, telling him that kindness like his deserved to be lifted higher. Within weeks, Edward made Ethan the manager of one of his restaurants, helping him and his daughter Lily finally live without fear of hunger. Months passed, and Amelia slowly regained strength through therapy her father arranged. She and Lily became inseparable, and every weekend, they'd visit Ethan's new restaurant, now named Second Chances. On the signboard outside, Edward had written a single line underneath the name, inspired by a man who believed kindness still matters. If this story touched your heart, even for a moment, please take a second to like this video, share it with someone who might need hope today, and subscribe to the channel for more stories that remind us there's still good in this world.